name is Oliver again. I'm glad to be with you on another vlog on behalf of the seasoned saints at Community Missionary Baptist Church. Of course, the first and the third Tuesdays of the month, we will be presenting this vlog. But this month has 5 Tuesdays. So in Trinidad, we call this lanyap, so we get a little extra. So I'm excited to be with you to present this vlog today. The parables of Jesus have always been an enigma and very confusing to a lot of individuals. And so we will be taking another parable today. Last week we dealt with the Good Samaritan, and today we want to talk about this feast. So take a look at this and we'll see you on the other side.
In Luke 14, Jesus told this parable. There was this one guy who was throwing this big party, a huge feast, and we're talking about some crazy good food here. And he invited a ton of people to come, told them all to save the day, and many of them said they'd be there. Well, at the time of the party, the man sent out one of his workers to remind everyone when the party was and how awesome it was going to be. He said, "Come on in, y'all. Let's get our party on. Let's eat." But then everyone began to make all sorts of lame excuses as to why they weren't able to show up to the party. One girl was like, well, see, I just bought this plot of land. Yeah, that's it. I just bought a field and now I have to go check it out. Sorry, can't come. What's that all about? Then this other guy was like, well, you see, the thing is I want to be there, but I just bought 5 pair of oxen, and so now I have to go try them out. Well, that's dumb. And then this other guy was all like, dude, I just got married, so, I won't be there because, well, TMI, dude. So moving right along, the man's worker comes back to the party and tells his boss, hey, boss, they're all being dumb and aren't coming to the party. Everybody has a lame excuse. The man throwing the party was ticked, so he told his worker to go out in the streets and schools and other neighborhoods and told him to bring in anyone else who wants to come. We gotta get our party on, yo! He said bring in even the people who would never think that they would get to come and party with us. Even go to the other side of town if you have to, and let them know I really want them to come to the party. I want to pack this place. So he did what his boss told him to do, and he started inviting all kinds of people to the party. And there were likely some shady characters there, mind you. But then he told his boss, we've still got room for more people. We're not full yet. The man throwing the party told his servant to go. Keep inviting people to my party. I want my house full. And just for the record, this sounds like a pretty cool party that I would like to be a part of. That guy with the oxen doesn't have a clue what he's missing.
So this is a very interesting story, and there is a reason why I'm excited to be here today, Season Saints, and it is my birthday. While the pastor in a few weeks will be 5 and 5, I am today 7 and 7, and I'm grateful to God for God's help and strength and grace and mercy, of course, in my own life. This story, to understand it, we have to get to the background of it. Jesus, at the early part of this chapter 14 in the book of Luke, was invited to a feast, but he was really entrapped. The intent of the invitation to Jesus to come to the feast was not for hospitality necessarily, but hostility. They had a reason why they really wanted Jesus to attend the feast, and that reason was that there was a man that was sick at the feast, and they wanted to entrap Jesus in this sense that they wanted to know whether Jesus would perform any miracle because it was on the Sabbath day. Of course, Jesus is always ready, and the man with the dropsy was healed on that day. And Jesus brought the illustration, and Jesus says, which one of you, having an ox, that falls, or an ass that falls in the ditch on the Sabbath day will not take the donkey out of the ditch. And then collaterally, he talks about the seats that people choose when they enter a feast or a banquet. And he reminded the people that when you are invited to a banquet, do not choose the elevated seat, lest the host will come and put you to another seat that is not preferable according to your choice. And then Jesus comes to this parable. And he said a man had a banquet, and he invited guests to the banquet. And they, even though they received the invitation a long time, they refused, and they had a whole lot of excuses. Check out the excuses that they had as they were reminded that the feast is now ready. The host said to the servants, the banquet is ready. You go out and remind them and tell them that they can come to the banquet. Of course, they had all kinds of excuses. One said, well, I've bought a piece of land, and I've got to go check the land out. The second said, well, I've bought 5 oxen, and I want to go and see whether they're going to be beneficial to me. And then the third said, well, I just got married, and I have to attend to my wife. Well, they are all legitimate reasons. But brothers and sisters, they have been invited to the banquet. They knew that the banquet was being prepared for them specifically. Yet when the time came, they're just like most of us. We couch our unwillingness to attend the banquet that Christ has prepared with flimsy excuses. For instance, wouldn't you think that the man who bought the 5 oxen tried them out before he bought them? Why is it that when he's invited to the banquet that he uses this as an excuse? Oh, flimsy excuses, and we all do. But I like what happened to the host when the servants came back, and the servants said, they refused to come. They don't want to come. And the host got mad. He was annoyed because he knew quite well that they were invited. They knew that the banquet was being prepared for them, and they refused. So the host says, I want you to go out, and I want you to get the poor, the maimed, and the blind, and invite them to come in. Because look at all this, all food that we have cooked, and yet those who have been invited are not willing to come. I like the choice of people. Jesus says in the parable, he says, go get the poor. In other words, what I believe that what Jesus was really saying is that don't go out and invite your friends and your relatives who can repay you one day because they came and enjoyed a good meal. But Jesus was essentially saying, I want you to go out and get those who cannot repay you. Get those who cannot show you the kind of gratitude that so many of us are enveloped with. He says the poor. He said the maimed. And he said the blind. Those who were invited to the banquet, brothers and sisters, are those who would not have initially been invited, and secondly, they cannot even help themselves. The poor, In today's parlance, we'd say the poor have no means of transportation to come to the church. But yet Jesus says, go find them. The poor, the maimed, the crippled. Imagine the banquet, the elegance and ambience of the banquet. But Jesus says, go get the poor, go get those that are all raggedy, those that have not taken a bath for a while. Invite them to come in. But then he says also, invite the blind. You know, the blind cannot make their way to the banquet. They cannot make their way to the feast. They're blind. They have no sight. Which reminds me that what Jesus was really saying is that if you're going to go out and help, you're going to have to get dirty. This is what ministry is about. You're going to have to stoop down and scoop out of the dregs of society. Someone said to me one time in ministry, sometimes we have to go after the people who nobody wants. And God, this rewarding God, will give us the people that everybody wants. That's the way, that's the calculation. It's the mathematics of God, the way God works. So the challenge for us is to be able to go and find people who are unlike us and to be comfortable in that venue. To be comfortable with those who don't smell like us. To be comfortable with those who don't look like us. To be comfortable with those who don't talk like us. That's what the gospel is all about. That's what the reason why Christ died is, for the poor, the maimed, the blind, the lost, the forgotten, the marginalized of society. So he goes out, they go out, and they come back and they said, well, we have invited the poor, we have invited the maimed, we have invited the blind, and the host says, there is still room for more. And then he sprung a surprise on them. He says to the servant, go out and compel them. Those who were not invited initially, more than just the poor and the maimed and the blind, go out and compel them, others, to come in. Isn't that what the gospel is all about? Because in this parable, who are the servants? And we always, when I was in seminary, they always told us that when we read a parable, we must ask the question, who am I in this parable? Well, in this parable, we, saints, we are the servants. And Jesus is saying to us, go out into the highways and into the byways and compel them to come in. Ask them, compel them to come in. I am excited about the fact that God has asked us to compel them to come in. But how do we compel people to come in? We compel people to come because of our life, the life that we live as the children of God, as the people of God, as the seasoned saints of God, that we demonstrate by the way we live. Because our life is the only Bible that some people would read. It is by our life that people are compelled to come. We can't hold them by the hands and drag them, but brothers and sisters, if we live a life that is exemplary to God, then and only then shall we have the innate and inherent compulsion so that people, others, will come in. Go out into the highways and into the byways. This is evangelism. This is what Christ, the reason for which Christ died, so that we might go out and compel them to come in. Seasoned saints, this is our hour. We will finish well, but the way we finish well is by being the witness for Jesus Christ, going out there, because I believe that a banquet is being prepared, don't you? Don't you also believe that Jesus is preparing a banquet for us? I'm looking forward to that day. But I want to invite the maimed, the poor, the underprivileged, those who don't look like me and those who don't look like you, to invite them to come in. That's what this parable is all about. It's not the preferential treatment of those who are privileged, so to speak, but to look for those who are hurting. The gospel is the gospel for those who are in pain, physically, mentally, socially. People are in pain all around us. And the parable here is about doing just that. I hope that in this, the latter part of our lives, that we will understand the unique challenge and privilege that is afforded all of us. As God has given grace, I often say that grace comes to us always on its way to somebody else. And in our latter years, as we get closer to heaven, as we get closer to that eternal city, may we spend these years to be a blessing to those for whom Christ died. I want to compel people to come in. I want to compel people who are in pain, people who are maimed, and people who are hurt. I want to come to invite them to come in to this feast that God is preparing for us. Well, I'm glad you joined us on my birthday, on my 77th birthday. And so let me remind you that on the first and the third Tuesdays of the month, we will be presenting this blog on behalf of Seasoned Saints, epic, experienced person in Christian service for God. We see you on Sunday. God bless you, and thanks for joining us. You have a great day. Thank you. Finish well.